So this evening would commemorate the evening that Yehoshua and his Talmidim, that's right, Talmidim, ate unleavened bread and drank wine together, or the Talmidim did, sat with Yehoshua, not Jesus. That's right, folks. The Hebrew word for disciple is Talmid. Yes, a word the Gentiles hate with all their heart and all their soul. Because, you see, the word Talmid is associated with another word called Talmud, which means teaching. Talmid is referring to the one that is taught. Alright? So, now what I want to do is I want to show you a scripture that the Gentiles, the churches, abhor. They will never read this in public. In their buildings of houses of worship, they will never do it. I will go to Strong's Concordance because it's like their kryptonite. Because what it does is it completely shatters and destroys their false narrative of their false kingdom. And what passage am I talking about? After the Last Supper, as they say, down here in verse 24 of Luke 22, there was also strife among them, which one be accounted to be the greatest? And he said unto them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise rulership over them, and those who exercise the authority over them are called benefactors, do-gooders. But you shall not be in this way. So what did the Gentiles do, the Christians do? They did exactly the opposite of what he told them to do. But he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he that is chief as he that serves. For which is greater, he that sits at food, or he that serves? Isn't it the one who sits to eat? But I am among you as he who serves, not he who serves himself. Now, here's what he says. He says, you who have continued with me in my temptations, I will appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Abba has appointed unto me, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. But wait a minute. You church folks, you wanted the Jews gone for century after century after century. You were looking for ways to rid this world of the Jews and all Israel once and for all. Well, you cannot be serving Yehoshua if this is what you do. You cannot be calling the Jew your enemy if Yehoshua said this. So the kingdom consists of the 12 tribes of Israel. Where are the Gentiles going to be? Well, they have to be grafted in among the branches of Israel, as I pointed out in my video day before yesterday. I'll go there again. Romans 11. He's speaking to the Romans. After all, that's the reason why Paul called. That's why it's called the book of Romans. Okay. He says, "I say, have they stumbled?" That's Israel. "That they should fall? No, but rather through their misstep, false step, trespass, salvation is come to the Gentiles, for to provoke them, Israel, to jealousy." Now, if the false step, trespass be the riches of the world, the Gentile world, and the diminishing of them be the riches of the Gentiles, how much more shall their fullness be? How much greater shall their redemption be? How much greater shall the forgiveness of Israel's sins be? How much greater shall their blessing be? I speak to you, Gentiles, because I am the apostle of the Gentiles. I magnify my office. He was the apostle to the Gentiles. None of the other disciples were. None of the other Talmidim were. I magnify my office, if by any means I may provoke to emulation of them which are of my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away, rejection of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? How much greater the reconciliation of Israel with Yehovah through Yehoshua will be much greater than the reconciliation of the Gentiles towards Yehovah. For if the first fruit is sacred, the lump is also sacred, and if the root be sacred, so are the branches, all 12 of them. And if some of the branches were broken off temporarily, and you, being a wild olive, were grafted in among them, not separated from them, but no, the opposite of what you said, you Christians said in the Constantine Creed. And with them partake of the root and the fatness. It says partaking jointly with them, not separately with them, jointly. Boast not against the branches, but if you boast, you bear not the root, but the root bears you. You will say the branches are broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they are broken off, and you stand by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear, for if Yehovah, not God, spared not the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Look at the excellence, uprightness, and severity of Yehovah on them which fell severity, but toward you uprightness and excellence, if you continue in this, otherwise you also will be cut off. And they will be grafted back in, for Yehovah is able to graft them back in again. So, you see, that is how the Gentile enters into the kingdom. It has to be grafted in to one. It's like, okay, let's say, for example, if I were a Gentile and I wanted to be in the kingdom, I would have to be grafted into either Yehuda, Benjamin, Manasseh, Ephraim, Gad, Naphtali, Asher, Dan, Zebulun. One of them. I'd have to be grafted in one of them. This is what I'm saying. But if you, the Christian, set about, as you did, to go about slaughtering them, there is no place for you in the kingdom. There is none. And if you try to remove Israel from the kingdom, you are actually removing yourself from the kingdom. And this is what you did. And so now, what do? Because of the Constantine Creed, because of this, where all Christians were compelled to renounce all customs, rites, legalism, unleavened breads, and sacrifices of lambs of the Hebrews, and all of the feasts of the Hebrews, sacrifices, prayers, aspiration, purification, sanctification, appropriations, and fasts, and new moons, and Shabbats, and superstitions, and hymns, and chants, and observances of synagogues, absolutely everything Jewish, including the Jewish Mashiach. Because you did this out of spite for the Jews, out of hatred for the Jews, if you eat of bread and drink wine, you drink damnation unto yourself. All right? His name never was Christ, and it never will be Christ. That is the name of the beast. Christ is the name of the beast. I have pointed this out to you before. The name of the Mashiach is Yehoshua. He said, "For I have received of the Mashiach that which also I delivered to you, that the Mashiach Yehoshua, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread, and when he gave thanks, he broke it, and he said, Take, eat, this is my body, which was broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. After the same manner he took the cup, which he had supped, saying, This cup is the new, not testament, covenant." Yeah, you see what they did? You see what they did? Look at it. Covenant, right there. In my blood. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you do show the Mashiach's death until he come. Whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of Mashiach unworthily shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Mashiach. And what did you do, Christians? You, right here, this is what you did. You accused the Jews of murder as if you yourselves and your people had nothing to do with it. And you used that to give yourself license to murder the Jews at will. You did. Absolutely everything Jewish, every law, rite, custom, and if afterwards I wish to deny and return to Jewish superstition, or shall be found eating with Jews, or feasting with them, or secretly conversing or condemning, it doesn't say and, it says or. The Christian religion, instead of openly confuting them and condemning their vain faith, then let the trembling of Cain and the leprosy of Gehazi cleave unto, not me, you, as well as the legal punishments that they acknowledge themselves liable, and may they be anathema in the world to come, and whatever soul be set down with Satan and the devils. This is what you did. And furthermore, let's see what else you did. When the question arose concerning the most holy day of Easter, which Easter is a pagan anti-Mashiach day, and those who celebrate that day are anti-Mashiach. Okay? It was decreed by common consent to be expedient that this festival should be celebrated on the same day by all and in every place, and truly in the first place it seemed to be every one a most unworthy thing that we should follow the custom of the Jews in celebration of this most unrighteous solemnity, who polluted wretches have stained their hands with a nefarious crimes, are justly blinded in their minds. Okay, with a nefarious crime. You know what they accused the Jews of. Let's look up a word. Deicide. Oh my. So now they got a metal band going by this stupid name. Jews accused of. By Christians. The charge of Jewish deicide is an anti-Semitic trope alleging collective generational Jewish responsibility, as they say, for the crucifixion of Jesus, when in fact it was Yehoshua, arising in early Christianity, 2nd century. This accusation, linked in Matityahu 27 verses 24 and 25, fed centuries of persecution, including pogroms, expulsions, and violence, and was officially repudiated by the Catholic Church in 1964, when the Catholic Church was found to be secretly working with Adolf Hitler in the 30s and the 40s. Of course, it's too late. It's too late. It's too late for the Catholic Church. It's too late for Christians. So they accused the Jews of doing the killing. But who did the killing? And if pogroms, expulsions, and violence was the punishment against the Jews for, as they say, deicide, what shall be the punishment upon the Christians for this very same crime? Handed over to the Gentiles. Oh, look. See, handed over to the Gentiles to be killed. I wonder what that's talking about. I wonder what that's all about. Oh, Yehoshua, not Jesus, predicted he would be handed over to the Gentiles, the Romans, by Jewish leaders to be mocked, flogged, and crucified and killed. So who did the killing? How in the world that the killer... Now, I'm not saying that the Jews were not complicit. They were. But it's like having two murderers, right? One was more guilty than the other. The Romans were. Because they actually did the mocking, the scourging, and the killing. The one that committed the most crimes went and turned around and accused the other one of doing it while absolving his own self. That's what he did. So you see, what you have is you have the Gentile Christians accusing the Jews of what they themselves did, and then when it was said about persecuting them all these years, there is a scripture that is a reference to that you may not know. It is the parable of the servants. Let me see. Parable. The two servants. Oh, yes. Matityahu 24:45. Oh, I already forgot. It's 24:45. No, that's not the one I'm looking for. Okay. Servant owed him a penny. Oh, the unforgiving servant. Okay, 18:21. Okay, we talk about here, therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king which had taken account of his servants, and when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him which owed him 10,000 talents. But forasmuch as he was not able to pay, his master commanded him to be sold, and his wife and his children, all he had, and payment be made. And the servant therefore fell down and did reverence to him, saying, Master, have mercy, patience with me, I will pay you all. And when the master of that servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him, and forgave him the debt, it was a monetary debt. But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants which owed him 100 pence, $1. I thought it was a penny, but it's $1. And he laid his hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me what you owe. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, I will pay you all. And he would not accept, and he went and cast him into prison until he should pay the debt. And when his fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told their master all that was done. And then his master, after he called him, saying unto him, You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt, because you desired, because you wished me to. Shouldn't you also have had compassion upon your fellow servant, even as I had pity upon you? And his master was wroth, and delivered him to the tormentors, until he should pay all that was due unto him. Now, think of it this way. Okay. The Gentile committed the greater sin. The Jews handed Yehoshua over to the Gentiles so that the Gentiles would kill him. Okay? So the Gentiles are the ones who owed him 10 talents, 10,000 talents. And the Jews are like the servant who owed $1. They were both in debt. They both needed to be forgiven. But the one who was in greater debt refused to forgive the one who was in smaller debt. And I've gone over scriptures before in the prophets that showed that the Gentiles were in greater error, greater sin than Israel was or is. I'll come upon that passage one day once again. But those of you who I've just shown the analogy and you're upset about it, that is your condemnation, not mine. I'm telling you the truth. You choose the lie. Well, if you choose the lie, you're also choosing the consequences of that lie. Condemnation is coming, folks. The reduction of the entire world to rubble is coming. And there is nothing that you can do. There's nothing that any president, king, prime minister, dictator, whatever can do to stop it. The whole world could get together and try, and they cannot stop it. And it's going to come by the mouth of two prophets, with the power of Moshe and Eliah. So, the next time you condemn a Jew, I want you to think of one more passage. Is it 24, 25? 25. The sheep and the goats. Now when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all of his sacred messengers with him, then he will sit upon his throne. Now where's that throne going to be? He said, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Therefore, that throne is going to be in Mount Zion, Jerusalem. Whether you like it or not. Of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all the Gentiles. Gentiles. Where are the Jews going to be? I'll show you. You see, you have all the Gentiles be stood right here in this one place. And if there's another group of people, it's the Jews. That's right. And he's going to address a second group of people. The Jews. All the Gentiles, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. And the king shall say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Abba, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. He's talking to Gentiles. Why is he saying this to the Gentiles? For I was a hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then the righteous shall say unto him, Master, when did we see you hungry and fed you, or thirsty and gave you to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and took you in, or naked and clothed you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and came unto you? And the king shall answer and say unto them, he will say unto those Gentiles, that group of Gentiles, Verily I say, inasmuch as you have done it to one of the least of these my brethren. That's the other group of people, the Jews, by default. You have the Gentiles and you have the Jews. There is no in-between group. You either got the Gentiles or the Jews. So he addresses the Gentiles, and then he addresses what the Gentiles did to the least of these my brethren, which are the Jews. Don't forget, what Paul said in Romans 11. He said this. Where is it? For if the first fruit is sacred, the lump is also sacred, and if the root be sacred, then so are all 12 branches. So Yehoshua and the Jews are Yehoshua's least of these my brethren, whether you like it or not. Many of you, most of you, will not agree with this. You would rather go straight to the tribulation and everlasting condemnation than to believe the truth. Well, that's on you. That's not on me. But what I'm telling you is this. This is how a Gentile, these are the righteous works of a righteous Gentile, right here, because it says, before him gathered all the Gentiles, right here. You're a Gentile? You want to get on Yehoshua's good side? Then do this. For I was hungry, and you gave the Jew meat. The Jew was thirsty, and give him to drink. The Jew was a stranger, and you took him in. The Jew was naked, and you clothed him. The Jew was sick, and you visited him. The Jew was in prison, and you came unto him. You see, there are many Gentiles who did this. Irene Gut Updike is one of them. Herman Goring's brother, Albert Goring, is another one. There were thousands in the 30s and the 40s who did this, who have their place in this kingdom. You should try being one of them. So I say, folks, pay attention, be humble, accept the truth, and for the love of everything righteous, do not speak against the Jews, and do not disseminate false information to anybody against the Jews, unless you want to be in this second group of people. Then he shall say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his messengers. For I was hungry, and you gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you took me not in, and naked, and you clothed me not, sick and in prison, and you visited me not. And why didn't you? Well, the ones who did had compassion. The ones who didn't, by default, hated the Jews. Don't be of the latter group.